A Catholic state representative from Illinois opens up about why she chose life and not abortion for her son with a life-limiting condition. Originally published in 2015, a commentary piece by Illinois State Representative Jeanne Ives was recently recirculated online. The Chicago Tribune piece is titled, "Why We Let Our Baby's Death Come Naturally." The commentary recounts how Ives' fifth son was diagnosed with a deformity during the 20-week ultrasound visit. But instead of getting an abortion like her doctor strongly encouraged, Ives and her husband continued on with the pregnancy. Their baby, Mark, died 45 minutes after he was born. In her piece for the Chicago Tribune, Ives writes, "A just, merciful, and compassionate society cares for those who suffer, including preborn babies with serious and even fatal conditions and family members who lose their beloved babies on the day they first meet. And caring for very sick babies like our son Mark does not entail killing them." Illinois State Representative Jeanne Ives joins us now from Chicago, Illinois. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me on your program.
You wrote, your high-risk pregnancy doctor strongly suggested abortion for your son, Mark. Can you share with us your initial reaction to that and how you ultimately decided to continue on with your pregnancy?
Well, you know, anybody in this situation after the 20-week ultrasound, you're waiting to find out what the doctors say about your child. And in our case, we found out that our baby was essentially not going to live past birth, at which point my high-risk doctors said, you know, your best option here is to abort. And I was taken aback by that. I mean, obviously, it's something that other people choose, knowing that their child has no hope to live. And I couldn't live with myself. Fortunately, my gynecologist, my OB obstetrician, actually, he was very pro-life, the father of 7, and he pulled me into his office immediately and said, "We are going to have this baby, and we're going to see it through to the end." And so obviously, I was very much supported by a pro-life doctor in this situation.
You mentioned that it is a common argument for people to promote abortion for babies who have some kind of abnormality, but do you hope that sharing your story and being very open about that will provide an alternative narrative and counter that argument?
Well, you know, if you're a Catholic, you understand that sometimes suffering takes place for a reason. Sometimes you grow and you allow other people to maybe minister to you, to take the life early, to rule out a miracle that may take place or a misdiagnosis or any other chance for survival is the wrong thing to do. And I think that this just presented itself as a deep choice. Do I really believe in pro-life and God's will, or do I think that I should take life and not at my own beck and call? And I'm so fortunate that I had people around me to support my decision.
You mentioned earlier your Catholic faith. How has your Catholic faith sustained you during that time and today?
Well, you know, it's easier to make a choice like I had to make when you have grown up your whole life in a pro-life community, and when you've lived out that faith, and when you trust God, and when it's been part of your life since you were born, and when you know that you have everybody from your mother to your godmother to other folks that are just praying for you through this whole thing, you know that that prayer helps, and you know that prayer heals. And at that time, our kids were in Catholic school at St. Michael's, and the second grade teacher, which was one of my son's teachers at that time, happened to be a nun. And she said to me about 3 weeks prior to the birth, she said, "Well, how much longer do you have?" Mm-hmm. And I said, "Well, about 3 weeks." And she looked at me and she said, "That's really good, because then healing can begin." But you see, I know that had I taken the life early, had I not let this play out in God's time, that there would not have been the same healing. There would not have been the same solace, the same holding the baby in your hands and letting him go to God, having him baptized at the point of birth by my pro-life doctor. None of that would have happened had I chosen to abort instead.
Finally, you have had a busy past few months. You challenged Illinois Governor Bruce Rauner in the recent primary. You did not win, but you provided a stark contrast to Governor Rauner's record on abortion, especially considering he flip-flopped when he forced Illinois taxpayers to fund abortion on demand. Why did you want to challenge Rauner, and how do you plan to continue to promote life within your current position in the state house?
I challenged him because he signed into law, the first time ever via legislation to happen in the U.S., he signed into law taxpayer funding of abortion. And this is in Illinois, where Henry Hyde is a prominent politician that promoted the Hyde Amendment, which is no taxpayer funding of abortions. What's more is Bruce Rauner lied about it. He told us that he was going to veto that bill, and then he signed it anyway. So he had to be challenged. And I'm glad that we stood up and challenged that governor. We came very close, closer than anybody expected. I always thought we could win, though. And I think the pro-life community needs a wake-up call. You need to watch your politicians carefully, and you need to hold them accountable for your votes. So challenging Bruce Rauner was about holding him accountable. And we will continue to hold him accountable as he plays out the rest of his term. And we will we're a stronger caucus now, having been through that whole process. And we will hold politicians accountable in the future in the state of Illinois for their missed votes on this life issue.
Illinois State Representative Jeanne Ives, thank you for your time.
Thank you for having me on.